Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to RickCast. Once again, on the road in gorgeous Houston, Texas. I say gorgeous in quotation marks because if you've ever been to Houston, you know it's not really great. Once again, on hotel Wi Fi. Um, so as long as the show works, it's going to work for us tonight. We have four stories tonight, ladies and gentlemen. RFK is eliminating food dyes. Tim Pool at the White House, and apparently that made people uber mad. Student loans are back in the news because Trump and the Trump administration are actually going to start collecting on them. So the joy that everybody had when Joey B was going to eliminate them and it was going to be, yeah, now we're going the completely other way. Like Trump's going to start garnishing wages and going after people for that, which most of you watching either live or in the replay, it's not going to be a big deal to you specifically. But to the blue-haired feminists, you know, they're going to start garnishing their wages from Starbucks, and it's actually going to be a pretty nasty deal. And then finally, because nothing is sacred, and Hollywood, we talked about yesterday, the Outrun movie was going to be made by Michael Bay. I actually think this one's worse. You don't think it can get worse? I actually think this one's worse. This is Toys R Us the movie. You know, now that Minecraft made a ton of money, we're back into the nostalgia thing. I mean, nostalgia was out for a little bit, but nostalgia is back in. So G Money, good evening. Cena broke Ric Flair's world title record at WrestleMania. Yeah, I think Flair is still the better wrestler. No offense to John Cena. John Cena is fantastic. I mean, he's essentially carrying the company on his back. I don't know. The things about Cena, I don't hate him personally, but he's very limited. I don't know. I haven't seen any of his matches in years, but he's limited in what he can do. He knows how to work a crowd, which is great, but I was never on the Cena hype train. Now, outside of that, he apparently has like the world record for most appearances for Make a Wish, so you got to give it to him on that. And on the complete other side, he's a Chinese hack, so nobody's perfect. So there is all of that. Now, if you are tuning in to see if I am going to address what happened today over X, I mean, I will, but it's not going to be satisfactory to you. You are hoping that I am going to come on here and talk badly about people or, you know, make outrageous statements. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. Everybody that I got into any kind of spat with today, even the people that I don't know on X, I don't hate any of you, right? Despite the fact that there's these rumors that I am a knuckleheaded, bullheaded idiot, which probably most of that is true. Um, None of it has really fit my character. Now, do I care much about X? Not really. It's a dead platform. It's about 2 years away from being what Facebook is today. And I know people will try to say, listen, Rick, you got to make relationships on there. And that's fine. If that's your strategy, you go ahead and do that. But please don't ascribe negative things to me when it wasn't my intent. Now, I will address it really quickly. Michael, I think you are much better than I am on that one. I think based on today. But let me just, and it's in its regards to the Pope. So my whole thing, and this is actually because I love my brothers, my Catholic brothers and sisters on X, and I think we are running into a problem with the constant talk and speculation surrounding the next Pope. Right? This conclave process is not going to go quickly, especially for Americans, especially somebody like me who loves hymns and fast food. It's not going to be a quick process. And the more that we talk about the one we want, the one we want, it's going to set us up in a place where whoever is going to be picked, somebody's going to be disappointed. And instead of us embracing the Holy Father and being happy that he has been selected and that we have a new man to lead the church, somebody's going to be mad and somebody's going to say this about him and somebody's going to be that about him. And it's just, I don't like the way it's going to start off that pontificate for him. And that's not me for That's not me trying to be holy or anything like that. That's just me observing it for here. And I just think the speculations are bad. We should just leave it to the Cardinals and fast and pray and do our rosaries. Spending time speculating about it is just that. It's going to be speculating. So Eric Sammons put this out. Now, I do not hate Eric Sammons. I think it needs to be. I will say this on my platform because I was told multiple times today that I hate him, which is not true. But this is what X does. It monetizes hate and it monetizes anger. And that's for me and everybody else. So Eric Sammons writes, I think Cardinal Sarah would make an excellent pope, probably the best of all the options. But there is part of me that would love to see him as pope just to see the disgusting racist Catholic corners of the internet explode. And so I said, I don't think you people understand how absolutely dreadful the next couple months are going to be as far as Pope watch, as we're going to be subjected to some kind of hot takes like this. And I asked Eric Sammons a question. Do you know anything about Cardinal Sarah, others positions besides what you've seen on X? Sammons says, and this is our conversation. Regardless of what everybody else has ascribed to me, this was our conversation. I've been reading his work about Sarah for over a decade. And so I responded, then you of all people should know that it's not just because he's black. And when you take all of the great things he's done and distill it just down to his race, that's not a good look. And that's what my issue is. You are saying that you want him to be pope because he's black. That's what you're actually saying. I know you said all these other things, but in the end, you said, I want him to be there because he's black and I want to prove everybody wrong. Or you want, not him, but he wants everybody to be proven wrong. That's such an Americanization, a political lens on the Catholic faith. And I'm trying to tell everybody, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's not fall for these things. But I'm not going to show you the stuff. If you're really interested, you can go to my X feed and you can see what everybody had to say about me. Not a victim. I don't care. They're entitled to say what they want to say. And so he said, I didn't do what you say I did. Perhaps reread my post. Okay, I will do. And I said, explain the quote about the black part. He says, yes, that part of what I said because he's black. But look at everything else. The fact that he's black would just be an added bonus. And then, of course, I don't know. I guess I do have a reputation because everybody thinks that everything I say is in bad faith or bad motives, which maybe it is. I'm a Rhode Islander. That's kind of part of what I do. But it wasn't in bad faith. At least it wasn't to me. And, you know, that's fine if you think it was in bad taste. It wasn't. But you can say that. That's fine. It's your right. And so this was and forget what Joe Ender said. Thank you, Joe. This is what I said. Sir, I'm taking all things into account. Everyone is ascribing ill will, which the platform incentivizes. If you've been on X long enough, you know X incentivizes ill will and division. More clicks, more engagement. That's how it works. I'm wary of constant speculation and opining by everyone for a process that's going to be long and drawn out. And when we, myself included, try to get our hopes up for our guy, whoever it may be, it will lead to some discount of our next Holy Father. Now, as far as the tweet, to mention that last portion does seem to take away from his accomplishments and base it on his skin color to own the racists, right? The same thing why we wanted to vote for Trump, to own the libs. My foolish opinion, it's unfair to his eminence to even to talk about his race. That was my point. And there are actually more prominent Catholic Twitter accounts that have agreed with me and have actually tweeted something very similar, that the people that came after me and ascribed the ill will towards me, they haven't said anything and they probably won't say anything to them. Once again, not a victim, just pointed out. Who do they go after and who do they not? Who do they decide to point out their ill will to and who did they not? It's just very interesting. And so once again, I don't hate any of the people that reached out to me, even if they said nasty things to me. It's your right to say it. I'm not mad at you. You don't owe me anything. I hope you know that. Nobody owes anything on X. If you feel that my interactions today, you have a lesser opinion of me, once again, that's your right to have it. Man, I respect you. I respect you for having it. I'm not going to hold any ill will towards you for it. Just know that a lot of things that you're basing stuff on, you don't have the clear picture or the whole picture because of opinions or bias or whatever the case may be, which, by the way, is a human trait. So I don't hate any of these guys. Um, I don't want. It's just the platforms, and I really am wary of how the constant speculation for 2, 3 guys. What's going to happen in July? What's going to happen in August? Right? People are going to start speculating. Oh, we haven't gotten a pope yet. That only means this, that, or the other thing. We're worrying about stuff. What does our Lord tell us? Pray, hope, and don't worry. Don't speculate. Don't worry about this stuff. And that's the summation of what happened. Once again, I have no ill will towards Eric Sammons. No ill will towards him. No ill will towards any of the other people that I interacted with today. It's online, and I don't take any of it to heart. And there was the saying that everybody agreed with before Elon bought the platform is that Twitter wasn't real life. And I got news. Twitter still isn't real life, even if Elon bought it. So you can, and Twitter is not that big of a platform when that happens. So, it's just a Tuesday. And, I wish nothing but, I really don't hate anybody. I don't hate any of them. I don't discard them. I still think my question was valid. And Eric and I had a pretty civilized interaction. I didn't, I mean, he said I was ascribing ill will to him, but I don't think it was. So, anyway, like I said, it's not going to be a rage-filled, emotional thing because, I'm not a woman. So I'm not going to be emotional about it. I'm just going to state my facts and state my view of it and what happened. And, it's going to happen however it's going to happen. Here's the thing. People are going to think things about you whether you try or not. They're going to form opinions about you whether you try or not. So it is however it's going to be. So that is an explanation of what happened today. It's just another Tuesday on X. Somebody's fighting with somebody else, or somebody's misinterpreting something from somebody else, and you can't let it drive you. So let's get on with the rest of the show. This is a new show, not a gossip show. So let's talk about our first story of the night here on RickCast. And I gotta get into this before my internet, before the beautiful Hampton Inn, decides to cut off my internet. All right, ladies and gentlemen, first story up today. I guess this is one of those promises made, promises kept kind of deal. One of the reasons that a lot of people kind of jumped on the Trump bandwagon towards the latter half of the campaign was the MAHA, the Make America Healthy Again. And that was the introduction of RFK Jr. and the fact that he was going to go after the fact that we're kind of a fat society, an overweight society. And, he's a health nut and all this other kind of stuff. A lot of crunchy mobs and a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon with that. And RFK being confirmed into the cabinet, this is what people wanted. They wanted to see something like this. So from the post-millennial, RFK Jr. is going to eliminate artificial dyes in food and in medicines by 2026. That's a heck of a timeline. If you're thinking about this, it's a heck of a timeline for companies. Right? They're going to be in here. They're going to be coming after my Bitcoin soon, G Money, right? With all the bandwidth. They're going to make me start paying for it. That's really what it's going to be. But this is a huge blow to companies. And, all of these companies, just think about next time you go to the store, the food that you buy, just look at the artificial food dyes that are in them. And all the artificial food dyes that are in all of the food, like the middle of the grocery store. I get it. You walk around the outside. That's the healthy guy. I get it. Blah, blah, blah. But It's great. I think it's great. If you've ever been to Europe, you'll see that they have different standards. Even Mexico, right? Mexico with their Cokes, the Mexican Cokes that have sugar cane and not high fructose corn syrup, and what they have. The food that we eat in these United States it's poisonous. I don't think anybody can disagree with that statement that we eat poisonous food, and this is something in the right direction. So, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and FDA Commissioner Marty McCary announced on Tuesday that petroleum based synthetic dyes will be eliminated from medication in the nation's food supply by the end of 2026. This includes those found in candy, soft drinks, like this delicious Coke Zero I'm drinking, desserts, breakfast cereals, and jams, which pretty much are all my major food groups. So, um, the agency said it would set a standard and deadline for the industry to transition to natural alternatives and take action to remove remaining colors from the market. The FDA intends to revoke authorization for dyes that are not in production within the coming weeks. And then this is them talking about it. I don't have the bandwidth for that. Quote, today, the FDA is taking action to remove these petroleum-based food dyes from the U.S. food supply and for medications, he said. For the last 50 years, American children have increasingly been living in a toxic soup of synthetic chemicals. The scientific community has conducted a number of studies raising concerns about the correlation between petroleum-based synthetic dyes and several health conditions, such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, obesity, diabetes, insulin resistance, cancer, GI issues, and etc. Pretty much it sounds like the end of one of those medical commercials. Petroleum-based dyes are used to color food and medication products. 36 color additives and 9 petroleum-based chemical dyes are currently permitted to be used in American cuisine by the FDA. In January, the agency announced that the Red 3 food dye used in candies, cakes, and medications would be banned in the coming years after it caused cancer in lab rats. Health advocates have long advocated for the elimination of artificial food dyes, citing a variety body of research that suggests that it may add to behavioral issues in children. And so they continue to talk about this, but this is one of those issues that we could say it's a promise kept by the Trump administration, that they are making sure that this is something. The only reason you wanted RFK Jr. in the administration was for this, was to go after the things that make us fat. And so it's good. I will say that's a positive in the column for the Trump administration, and good Trump. We'll give him a good Trump on this, right? We're very we have a very simple system. Good Trump, bad Trump. This announcement, putting RFK in the cabinet, that's a good Trump. We'll give him that. So moving on, this is RickCast. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Even though they say that doesn't work, it's more about watch time and engagement. So just hit the like bell. And you guys are leaving comments, so that's pretty much what I need you to do. So thank you for that. Let's see. Moving on to our second story of the day. Like I told you, I gotta get one of those things that extend monitor extenders. I need like 4 of those just to see all the stuff. Anyway, second story of the day. We're going to be good. Not going to be good. Student borrower repayment risk damage, experts say. Of course, this is by ABC News, so take this with as much of a grain of salt as you can. Now, the whiplash that people are feeling from one administration to the next is pretty crazy. Good evening, G. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you being here. Same with Bellator, same with Crotchety Elder, Brian, Lou, all you guys hanging out with me. I love it. Thank you guys for being here. My loyal group. My bar rats, actually, to give you the correct phrase, my bar rats are showing up in numbers, and I appreciate it. So remember under Joey B, when we all thought we were going to get our student loan canceled, and how the only people that got their student loans canceled were Democratic operatives? Yeah, that's not it anymore. that's not it anymore. The Trump administration has come back with a pretty big vengeance in this regard, looking at this now. And you know what? I don't think there's on the surface level, there's nothing wrong with this, right? We've talked about it. Where's the title of this thing? Stupid ad right here. Um, you know, there's predatory lending in colleges, and there's the fact that most people shouldn't even go to college anymore. I would even put myself in that category. If I looked back at it, I probably should have gone into a trade in my youth. I probably should have been like a lineman or a locksmith or something that could have utilized my more physical talents and would have been able to provide a good living, no debt, things like that. But we were all told to go to school and we were all told to get degrees. And I went back for a master's that to this day I still haven't used, which I think is pretty impressive. And the question comes, well, who's going to pay for my loan? The fact of the matter is, you got to pay for your own loan. You got to make sure that when you signed on the dotted line, even though you were 18 years old, you still signed on the dotted line. Luckily for me, I was able to pay off my undergrad pretty quick because I went to community college for 2 years, and then I went to the Rhode Island college. So I think my whole thing was like 15 grand because I commuted. I didn't even stay on campus. So I was able to pay that off. I'm still paying off my master's, but I made the decision for the master's. I signed on the dotted line for the master's. So I'm the one who has to pay for it. Now, Crotchy, it's a very interesting story. This idea. When I used to teach, I used to get into it. Shocking, I know. With other teachers, when these teachers would tell their students, "Hey guys, you're going to go to college," and I would actually sit in the classroom, and there would be kids that were saying, "I don't want to go to college," and the teacher said you had to, and I would tell them, "No, you don't have to go to college. You can find a trade. You don't have to spend the money if you're not confident that you had to." But it's the educational industrial complex that we're talking about. High school teachers say that you have to go to college, and then college says you have to get a master's, and the master's you gotta get a doctorate, and all these other kinds of things. So it's one of these things. It is. It was a mantra. You had to. You had to. You had to. And honestly, most of us. I don't know about you. I'll just speak for myself. I probably shouldn't have gone. I probably shouldn't have. Because yeah, I did become a teacher eventually, but I could have easily spent that time being in a trade and developing that way. So the people that do that are usually a little better off. Anyway, now people have fallen victim of the predatory relationship between colleges and the federal government. What do I mean? The federal government was writing checks, blank checks to colleges, and they still are. They were for a long time. They don't anymore because the Department of Education doesn't exist. But colleges could jack up their prices to whatever they wanted because the federal government was going to write a check for these people through the Fannie and Freddie loans to pay it. And then it was up to the student to pay it back. And we've talked on this program about other things when we were talking about Trump removing grants like Harvard and Columbia. All these places have enough money in their endowments to be able to pay for every single student. Or why don't we have plans that the college should be able to offer financing the same way like a Ford dealership does? You can get it through Ford Finance. Columbia has enough money that you could get, if you wanted to go to Columbia, you could finance it through Columbia Finance or whatever the case may be. It is 100% extortion, Lou. It's 100%, and it could be avoided at all costs. First of all, you don't need as many people in the colleges, and secondly, there shouldn't be a blank check that backs them. So now we have this issue. Joe Biden came in, student loan forgiveness. Everybody was hoping that it was going to happen, and then it didn't happen. Like a couple people, some teachers got it. It's kind of, some Democratic operatives got it. It was very selective in who got their student loans canceled. And then Trump comes in and he's like, nope, everybody's got to pay it back. And so now you're seeing the economy, which is not great because of tariffs, because of, let's be real, the damage from COVID. It's going to take, I don't know if we're ever going to actually ever outrun the effects of COVID and what it did to the economy and what it did to all of it. So we're dealing with that in the negative. And so people are now looking at the fact that, hey, you have this bill that you signed that you were going to pay. That's the thing. You were 18 when you signed it, but you still signed it. So the Trump administration's plan to begin collecting defaulted college loan payments from millions of borrowers risk contributing to an economic slowdown at a time when the U.S. faces an elevated risk of a recession. We've been in a recession. They didn't want to say we were in a recession under Joey B because that's how they manipulated the market. But we've been in a recession for a while. Once again, all due to the damages of COVID. Roughly 5 million borrowers will have their loans sent out for collections beginning on May 5th, the U.S. Department of Education said this week. Another 4 million people are in late-stage delinquency, meaning they could face collections within a matter of months. Under the plan, the federal government will garnish wages from some of those borrowers, pulling money out of their pockets that may otherwise be spent and turn drying up some economic activity. If the economy spirals into a downturn, they added that lost spending would have been a smaller factor than other issues like tariffs and investor jitters, but the sudden student loan collections could compound the damage. And I think what we're looking at as far as economic impacts on these things, and I mean, we can go into all that, but it's a lot of fear mongering from ABC because they're trying to tell you Orange Man bad. But whether it was the tariffs, whether it's the student loans, whether it's the economic hardship that we're facing right now, all of this, if you had been paying attention, even when I was back doing my show on the old station, all the way back then, we have been calling this for at least 10 years. Ever since they started quantitative easing under George W. Bush in his second term before Obama took over, the clock started at that point. Because if you know anything about your natural boom-bust cycles, the economy has never really truly busted, right? The capitalist utopia, the boom-bust cycle. The economy has never truly busted. And I think that's what scares a lot of people, is that it's never really busted. It's kind of just been toothpicked, propped up with 0% interest rates, quantitative easing, stimulus checks, government money, what's the expression? Printer go brrr, just pushing money out into the market. And the fact of the matter is, it can't last forever. It can't. And that's the issue, whether it's going to be the student loan repayments. Is that going to be the tipping mark? Is it going to be housing? If you've listened to News from the Pew with Steve and I, the housing market in Texas and in Florida and in Georgia, places that it's overbuilt, that's starting to come up a little sour. There's a lot of things that are starting to pop up, and people can try to blame Trump, and people can try to say, oh, it's because Trump, Orange Man bad, and all these other kinds of things. But it's really not his fault. So once again, they're starting to throttle me a little bit. So be patient. All of these things were going to happen somewhere. Now, is it going to happen under Trump? Who knows? Could it happen? Probably. We don't really have an idea of that, simply because we don't know what Trump's moves are going to be. We don't. And so, yes, they're going to try and highlight, oh, well, we didn't. Yeah, it's time to start stacking gold, silver, lead, farming. If you, speaking of Michael Thomas, the Catholic land movement, starting to make your own food, being more self-reliant, and understanding that this is being set up. And a lot of us were saying, like, hey, Trump might be in a position to be set up for a failure come the end of, or coming back into office. And it may happen or it may not. But you see the economic factors, the housing market. The job market isn't strong. It's not too weak. Spending is not great. People are worried about the loss of immigrants and the buying power that a lot of those places were kind of reliant on. And so it is what it is. The Sarah, it's played big time by the conspirators. Many have been hanging on this lie for years. Yeah, well, a conspiracy is only a lie until it becomes true. So maybe it never does. Either way, another thing for you to keep your eye on. All right, folks, this is RickCast. Like, subscribe, share, notification bell, comment down below, and continue to hang out with me because you guys are awesome and I love it. And I greatly appreciate all of you. The couple people that are on Rumble and the people that are on YouTube, great. Love y'all. I think it's great. All right, next, I really do. I'm not, it really is. All right, folks, next story, a little bit of a strange one, but it's kind of a slow new day. And I think it's interesting because as I drink some of my dye-infused soft drink, I don't know, you may not know him, but his name is Tim Pool. But this is part of that new media chair that the Trump administration has in the press briefings. And Tim Pool is one of the biggest streamers on the planet. And he was invited and he went into the White House and he sat in the briefing room, the press briefing room, whatever they call it. And of course, people were upset because it's Tim Pool and he doesn't dress up for everything. He always dresses like a skater and wears a beanie. And it's very interesting the 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 discussion around him because people are mad that he wore his beanie and he didn't dress up, and he's saying, well, I didn't dress up because the press room is full of a bunch of vipers and media hacks in the old media, which he's not wrong about. Most of them are pretty terrible people. But it's interesting. I love this headline so much that I just wanted to use it. Beanie wearing Russia bought MAGA influencer roasted at the White House. Now, one of my biggest yeah, right there, crotchety. You beat me to the punch. Tim Pool is not MAGA. He's not even a conservative. He's a baptized Catholic who's not a Catholic anymore. He is a professional fence sitter who decided that, and he's never really pushed things. Now he's a disaffected liberal, as he likes to say. But the fact of the matter is, you're regardless of what your opinions are about him, he's one of the biggest dogs in the media space. He is. He's what everybody else ascribes to be. I don't ever think, folks, you know, I might be. I have designs to be somewhat successful in this space. You know, nothing serious, nothing crazy, nothing like Tim. Tim streams 200,000 live concurrent viewers at night. He does better than most late night talk shows. But the fact is, and his presence there showcases that old media is essentially dead and that it's pointless because, and it highlights two things. One, old media is dead because the YouTube, Rumble, podcast space is the future. Most people don't get their news from ABC if you're under a certain age. If you're under the age of 65, you're not watching news at night. I've got 35 people in here that are talking about today's news with me. Right? As nuts as that sounds, it shows right there that he's kind of a fence sitter. I get it. He's not for everybody. I'm just saying he's the big dog right now. I won't disagree with you there, Steph. He has jumped on the Trump train to make a lot of money, and it's worked for him. And so Michael Thomas has a really good point on him there. You guys are all correct on Tim, and you're actually describing him better than I am. My whole point, he's not, but Joe doesn't stream every night. I'm talking about like daily streamers. You're correct in that regard. When Joe does stream, he blows them out of the water, but Tim does it every night. So I'm talking about like daily, like his nightly shows. He does pretty well. He's the biggest dog on there. But when Joe comes on, nobody is in the same depth as Rogan. So you guys are completely right on that. But the idea is this: his presence there upsets everybody because it shows that the traditional outlets are done. They don't matter anymore. Yes, they have money behind them, And Tim had some random awful woman on his show last night. And the fact of the matter is, even she admitted that the left and Democrats are behind the curve when it comes to new media. Look at what they're doing now. Michelle Obama has a podcast. They all have podcasts. They're doing the same things Republicans and conservatives were doing 5, 6, 7 years ago, because they realize that the media space is now dominated by people with a cell phone and a little mic and a computer. Because people crave authenticity, whether you get it from Tim, whether you get it from myself, whether you get it from, Eric Sammons, whoever you get it from. That's who you pick, and that's who you get your news from. And that's the craziest thing, is this dissemination of information, the decentralization of information, they want to call it. It's very interesting to see. And I don't know how the left is going to catch up on that. Will they just pour money into places like YouTube and try to prop up somebody? That the only problem with that is that that person's not authentic. People in this space, people who use these outlets, can smell authenticity, and they can smell fakeness, fake news. They can smell it. And it's very interesting to see Tim going there and the response that he got. I don't care about Tim. I listen to him in the background. He's essentially background noise while I'm editing videos and stuff. I don't really pay too much attention to him and the stuff that he talks about, but it's something. So, all right, that's it. That's it for that story here on RickCast. I got one more story for you all tonight, and just because it's true. I mean, it is true, and it is very strange to see in that regard. But let's get to our last story of the night, showing that Hollywood truly is bereft of creativity, originality, or any kind of thought. The Toys R Us action movie in the works, compared to Back to the Future and Jumanji. Other things that Back to the Future, at least they're not touching that yet. So Toys R Us is making a comeback, but as a feature film. The new movie, inspired by the former retail giant, is currently in the works, with Story Kitchen on board. I don't know who that is. Per Variety, Story Kitchen and Toys R Us Studios have partnered up to develop a live-action film based on the brand. It's a toy store. What's next? KB Toys, the sequel? That's completely correct, right? Nostalgia really is the infantilization of our culture. I think that's fantastic. Nostalgia is the outlet for the infantilization, which I said it right once. So the movie aims to capture that childhood wonder in a modern, fast-paced adventure, which I'm sure is going to be starring a lesbian, a transgender, and a person in a wheelchair, because that's nostalgic as well. And its relevance across its more 70 years in the toy industry, because nothing says relevance like an out of a bankrupt toy company, because everybody buys their stuff on Amazon now. Let's see here. Addressing the project in a statement, Story Kitchen co-founder Dimitri Johnson and Mike Goldberg stated, "Toys R Us is a cultural touchstone that continues impacting the child in all of us today. As 80s kids who considered Toys R Us one of the most magical places on earth, we're honored to partner to create a film that will capture the spirit of adventure, creativity, and nostalgia that Toys R Us represents." Really, it should just be a Christmas movie. Let's just say it should be the Christmas movie. And the nostalgia we're all talking about is going in on December 24th and not finding any of the toys and trying to fight with everybody. So essentially, Jingle All the Way. That's what it should be. It should just be a Jingle All the Way remake. Maybe they could bring back Arnold for it. But this is just ridiculous. The fact that they can't even. People talk about originals. People talk about, there's nothing left in film, and this is just another validation of that claim. And I think it's hysterical. And this movie will bomb, because most of these cash grabs bomb anyway, because you can't make a good movie about a toy store. Now, of course, people said you couldn't make a good movie about Minecraft, but then again, have you seen the people that play Minecraft? All they needed was just like moving pictures on a screen. It was going to be fine. But I don't know. This is just going to be another Hollywood failure, as Hollywood completely continues to delegitimize itself and become less relevant. I'm turning into a Chinese person. Less relevant in today's society, as more people care about YouTube or Rumble or streaming in general and independent content creators. Hollywood has to throw these desperate Hail Marys to be like, hey, we're making a Toys R Us movie. We're making a Toys R Us movie. Come see it, right? You remember Toys R Us as a kid? Hey, man, I'm a KB Toys guy anyway, so you're out of luck there. All right, folks, that's it for this episode of RickCast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Please do me a favor, hit the like button on your way out. Leave a comment on the way out the door. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do me a favor, subscribe anyway. Doesn't hurt to do that. And I will talk to you all tomorrow, once again, from the wonderful Hampton Inn in beautiful League City, Texas. I'm actually not in Houston. I'm in League City, Texas. But I will talk to y'all, man. God bless. And until that day comes, ladies and gentlemen, free Dexter Taylor. Y'all have a good one.